The night I found $12 left in my account, I thought my world was ending. I had no idea the quiet boy in the next room was already building the plan that would change everything. I'm Margaret Maggie Collins, 68 years old, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. And until last winter, I believed that no matter what happened in life, family would always protect you. That belief shattered the morning I logged into my online banking, sitting in my little kitchen with my coffee, and saw my savings. $46,000 I'd been building since my grandson Ethan was born. Gone. Not missing a few hundred, not a delay in processing. Gone. Down to $12.14. I froze. My fingers went cold against the mug. And then I noticed something even worse. An alert in bold red. New personal loan issued in your name, $32,000. I stared at the screen, my heartbeat slamming in my ears. I don't take out loans. I don't even use credit cards unless it's Christmas. Within an hour, I was sitting in the sterile office of the bank manager, the winter wind whipping snow against the glass outside. "Mrs. Collins," she said gently, sliding a printout toward me. "These transactions, they were made online. Whoever did this had all of your personal information. Social security number, date of birth, everything." I swallowed hard. "Then it's fraud. You'll reverse it, right?" Her eyes lowered. "It's not that simple. These requests passed all verification. It's as if..." She hesitated. "As if someone who knew you very well did it themselves." I drove home numb, my hands gripping the wheel like the steering column was the only thing keeping me from collapsing. Ethan, my 13-year-old grandson, was in the living room when I walked in, his headphones half on, playing something on his laptop. "Hey, Grandma," he said, glancing up. Then his smile faded. "What's wrong?" I didn't want to tell him. I'd been raising him since he was a baby, since my daughter, his mother, passed away after a car accident. I'd shielded him from every bill, every late payment, every crack in the walls of our lives. But I couldn't hide the shake in my voice. "Just bank trouble, sweetheart." "Is it money?" he asked sharper now. I nodded, and before I could stop myself, I whispered, "It's all gone, Ethan. Every cent I saved for you, and someone took out a loan in my name." He didn't blink. He didn't gasp. He just sat back in his chair and said, "I think I know who." I frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Grandma, it's Dad." The words landed like a punch. My son, David, Ethan's father, had been living with us off and on for years. He was charming when he wanted to be, but lately he'd been a ghost. Always working late, always borrowing my car, always saying he'd pay me back for this bill or that one. "Ethan, you can't just..." "I'm not guessing," he cut in. "I've been watching him. He's been taking pictures of your mail, your checkbook. I saw him on your laptop at night and I checked the browsing history. He was on your bank site at 2 a.m. I shook my head, unable to absorb it. "Honey, that's serious." "That's not all," he said, lowering his voice. "I've been tracking his phone. I know where he goes when he says he's at work, and I've seen his messages." My stomach turned. "How do you..." He leaned forward, a faint, almost embarrassed smile on his face. "Grandma, I know how to get into stuff. Computers, phones. I've been learning for a few years, and I've been collecting proof." I stared at him like I'd never seen him before. This was the kid I'd bought Legos for, the kid who used to fall asleep in front of Pixar movies, and now he was telling me he was... What, some kind of hacker? He pulled out a battered spiral notebook from under his desk and slid it to me. Inside, dates, times, account numbers I didn't recognize, screenshots of messages between David and a woman named Crystal. The messages made my chest tighten. Got the old lady's info. Loan approved. Next week, we drain the rest. Once we're done with her, we're out of Ohio for good. I pressed my hand to my mouth. They weren't just robbing me. They were planning to disappear. Ethan's eyes locked on mine. Grandma, I can stop them. But you have to trust me, and you have to act like you don't know a thing. That night, while David slept in the guest room, the hum of Ethan's laptop was the only sound in the house. His fingers flew across the keyboard, lines of code flickering on the screen like something out of a movie. I didn't understand half of it, but I understood one thing. My grandson wasn't a kid playing games anymore. He was my only ally in a war I never wanted to fight. I didn't know exactly what he planned to do. I just knew that for the first time since I'd seen that $12 balance, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. And if you've been listening to me this far, tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I love knowing the towns and cities where these stories travel. And if you want more stories that'll grip you like this one, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. 2 weeks ago, I thought the scariest thing in life was running out of money. Now I knew the real terror was looking across your kitchen table and wondering if your own child was planning to destroy you. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. David was asleep down the hall, probably dreaming about whatever he and Crystal were going to buy with my stolen savings. Ethan's room glowed faintly under the door, the soft tapping of keys telling me he was still working. By morning, the kitchen smelled like coffee and burnt toast. Ethan sat at the table with a notepad and my ancient calculator, looking more like a junior accountant than a teenager. "Grandma, I've mapped out his accounts," he said without looking up. "You've what?" "Every bank he uses. I've got screenshots, routing numbers, logins. He's moving the money through 3 different banks, 2 here in Ohio, 1 in Kentucky, and then cashing out in chunks so it doesn't trigger fraud alerts." I stared at him, my mind catching on one word. "Kentucky? He's driving out of state?" Ethan nodded. "Usually on Thursdays. He says he's delivering equipment for his job, but he's withdrawing cash and bringing it back to Crystal." It was dizzying, like stepping into a crime show, except the villain was my own son. "What do we do with this?" I asked. Ethan's eyes flicked to the hallway. He lowered his voice. "First, we get everything backed up in case he wipes his devices. Then we make sure the money he took can't vanish overseas. I can lock his accounts, but if I do it too soon, he'll know we're onto him." That was the catch. The boy had a plan, but it required patience, acting like nothing had changed. "You can do that?" I asked. "Lock accounts?" He gave me a small grin. "Let's just say I've been learning a lot about digital doors." I wasn't sure whether to be terrified or grateful. That afternoon, David breezed in with snowflakes clinging to his coat. "Hey, Ma, how's my favorite lady?" I forced a smile. "Fine, made chili. You hungry?" He kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. I ladled soup into his bowl and watched him eat, every bite making my skin crawl. Later, Ethan pulled me aside. "He's making the final transfer next Friday morning. $46,000 from your savings into a new account in Crystal's name. After that, they're gone." "Gone where?" "Florida first. Then, I think Puerto Rico. He's been looking at flights." I leaned against the counter, my legs weak. "So we have 1 week." "1 week," Ethan confirmed. "And Grandma, when it happens, you can't call him, can't warn him. You just have to trust me." The trust was already there. The part I struggled with was keeping my rage buried deep enough that David wouldn't see it in my face. That night, I heard Ethan in his room, murmuring into a headset. I peeked in and saw multiple screens glowing. Spreadsheets, maps, what looked like banking dashboards. He looked up and said softly, We're going to get your money back, Grandma. And he won't even know it's us until it's too late. It's strange, pretending life is normal when you know you're counting down to a heist. Even stranger when the thief is eating breakfast across from you, asking if you've seen his favorite sweatshirt. By Monday, the pressure felt like a stone on my chest. Every time David walked into the room, I felt my jaw clench. I wanted to scream, to shove Ethan's notebook in his face and demand an explanation. But Ethan's words were in my head. If he suspects we know, he'll move faster, and we lose our shot. So I poured coffee, asked about his work, and listened to his lies stack up like Jenga blocks. That afternoon, I decided to clear out the attic. Anything to keep my hands busy. Halfway through a box of old photos, I found one of David at 9 years old, sitting on my front porch steps, holding a baseball glove too big for his hand. His smile was wide and real. For a moment, the ache in my chest shifted from anger to something else. Grief, maybe. The boy in that photo wouldn't have done this to me. The sound of my phone vibrating snapped me back. A text from Ethan. "Don't say anything. Dad just left for crystals. I'm going in." My fingers flew over the screen. Going in where? His laptop. I can clone the drive if I get access for 30 minutes. I didn't like the sound of going in, but I trusted him. I stayed put in the attic, pretending to sort books, while Ethan moved like a ghost through the house. When he appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later, his cheeks were flushed, but his eyes were calm. "Got it all," he whispered. Emails, bank logins, even a voice memo where he talks about cashing out the old lady's account. I sat down on the floor, knees weak. "Voice memo." Ethan nodded. He records reminders to himself. This one's from last Thursday. Him telling Crystal, "Next Friday we drain Mom's savings. She'll think the bank screwed up." Hearing it secondhand still made my skin prickle. That evening, David came home early, reeking of cheap cologne and cigarette smoke. He leaned in the kitchen doorway. "Hey, Ma, I might head out of town for a few days next week. You'll be okay with Ethan?" I forced a laugh. "We'll manage." "Good. I've got things lined up." He winked like it was some big inside joke. Later, I sat on the edge of my bed, looking out at the snowflakes drifting under the streetlight. I whispered to myself, 4 more days. Just 4 more days. Ethan knocked softly and came in holding a small flash drive. "Everything's on here, enough to get the FBI interested." I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized my grandson wasn't just clever. He was brave. Brave enough to stare down his own father. "Grandma," he said, "once this starts, there's no undoing it. He'll know it was us." I took the flash drive, feeling its weight in my palm. "Then we'd better make sure it's worth it." By Wednesday, the walls felt like they were closing in. Every sound in the house, Ethan's keyboard tapping, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge, felt louder, sharper, and the clock seemed louder than anything. Tick, tick, tick. 3 days until David made his move. That morning, Ethan slid a sheet of paper across the kitchen table while I poured coffee. "What's this?" I asked. "The playbook," he said, step by step. At the top in big block letters, Friday, Operation Freeze. The plan was simple on paper but dangerous in reality. Ethan would send our evidence packet, emails, voice memos, account transfers, to the FBI Cybercrime Unit, the State Attorney General's office, and the compliance department of every bank David used. He'd time it so the reports landed right after David attempted to drain my savings. That way they'd catch him in the act, not just afterward. "If we move too early," Ethan explained, "he'll panic, hide the cash, maybe run. This way they'll have a digital footprint and a live crime happening." I stared at the last line. Note: Grandma must stay calm no matter what happens. I looked up. "You think I'm gonna blow it?" He smirked. "I think you'll want to punch him in the face. That's not part of the plan." That night, David waltzed into the house with Crystal in tow. She was tall, platinum blonde, and wearing perfume so strong it clung to the curtains after she passed through a room. "Ma, you remember Crystal," David said, like we were old friends. "Oh, of course," I said, masking the sour taste in my mouth. "Nice to see you." Crystal gave me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "David says you make the best meatloaf in Ohio. Thought I'd finally try it." We sat down to dinner, the four of us. The smell of garlic bread and roast beef filled the air, but my appetite was gone. They chatted about business opportunities in Florida, about getting out of the cold, for good. Ethan played his part perfectly. Polite, quiet, even laughing when Crystal made some empty joke about beachfront property. At one point, David raised his glass. "Here's to a new chapter," he said, locking eyes with Crystal. I forced a smile and clinked my water glass against his. Inside, my stomach twisted. "They're toasting to my destruction," I thought. After they left, Ethan came to my room. "I bugged her purse," he said quietly. "You what?" "A tiny GPS tracker. We'll know where she goes with the cash." I didn't even have the energy to be shocked anymore. Before bed, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked older than I had a week ago, like the weight of the truth had settled into my bones. But there was something else in my eyes, too. Not just exhaustion. Resolve. Friday started like any other winter morning in Ohio. Gray sky, frost on the edges of the windows, and the smell of coffee drifting through the kitchen. Except this time, the air in the house felt electric, like a storm was sitting just outside the door. Ethan was already at the table when I came in, 2 laptops open, cords running across the floor like vines. He was wearing his hoodie up, his face pale in the glow of the screens. "Morning, Grandma," he said without looking up. "Morning. You ready?" I asked. He gave a single nod. "Today we finish this." At 8:13 a.m., David left the house. He whistled on his way out, that easygoing whistle he used to do when he was in a good mood. This time I knew it meant he thought he was in control. Ethan pulled up a map on one laptop, David's phone location sliding across town. "He's going to Crystal's first," Ethan said, "then to the bank." By 9:45, we had a split screen in front of us. One side with my bank account dashboard, the other with a secure email form loaded and ready to send to the FBI, the Ohio Attorney General, and 3 banks. "When he hits transfer," Ethan said, "I hit send." I tried to steady my breathing. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt my heart pounding this hard without running. At 10:02, it happened. The balance in my savings account dropped. $46,237.59 gone in a blink. I felt a wave of nausea hit me, like my stomach had dropped through the floor. "Now," Ethan said, his voice sharp. He pressed one key and the email shot off like bullets. Another window popped up. David's accounts, one by one, freezing as compliance systems locked them down. "Got him," Ethan murmured. By 10:07, Ethan's phone lit up. He'd routed all of Crystal's text notifications to his own device. A message came through from her bank. "Large deposit under review. Funds on hold." We stared at the screen. Ethan grinned. "They can't touch it." Then another notification, this one from the GPS tracker in her purse. She was moving, fast. "She's on the highway towards Cincinnati," Ethan said. "I'll ping law enforcement with her live location." At 10:19, the house phone rang. It was David, his voice ragged. "Ma, something's wrong. The transfer froze, Crystal's freaking out, the bank's asking questions. What the hell is going on? I let a silence stretch. Then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, "Maybe the police can help you with that, David." "What? Police? What are you talking?" In the background, I heard Crystal shouting, and then sirens. Ethan looked up at me, his eyes blazing. "They're pulling them over." I hung up the phone without another word. My hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear this time. It was the surge of something I hadn't felt in months. Control. When the sirens faded from the phone line, the house felt too quiet. I stood in the kitchen with my hand still on the receiver, staring out the window like I could see all the way to the interstate. Ethan leaned back in his chair, headphones still around his neck, eyes locked on his second monitor. "They're stopped," he said. "Highway patrol pulled them over just past exit 42. My voice came out as a whisper. Are they in custody?" "Give it a minute." He tapped a few keys. "Yep. Troopers called it in. 2 suspects detained." It should have been relief. Instead, I felt a rush of heat in my chest, like all the anger I'd been burying had just shot to the surface. "Call him," Ethan said. "One last time. Let him know exactly who he underestimated." I didn't hesitate. I dialed David's number. After 3 rings, he picked up. The sound of wind and muffled voices came through first, then his panicked tone. "Ma, I don't know what's going on, but they've got us pulled over. They're saying something about fraud and stolen funds." "You know exactly what's going on," I cut in. My voice was cold enough to frost the receiver. "And you should thank your lucky stars they got to you before I did." "Ma, No. You had every chance, David. You could have asked for help. Instead, you stole from me. From your own son's future. And from a list of strangers who never did a thing to you except exist as easy prey." There was a pause, then a faint, almost broken laugh. "It was Ethan, wasn't it? My own kid?" I glanced at Ethan. He was watching me, his face steady, waiting for me to finish this. "Your son," I said, "is twice the man you'll ever be. And he's 13. I hung up before he could answer. My hands were still trembling, but this time, it was from the release of holding those words back for months. By noon, my house phone rang again. This time from a number I didn't recognize. A voice identified himself as Special Agent Brooks from the FBI's Cincinnati field office. "Mrs. Collins," he said, "we've recovered $42,000 in your name, and there's evidence of multiple other victims. Your son and an accomplice are in federal custody." I sank into the kitchen chair, tears stinging my eyes. "And the others? The people they stole from?" "We'll be working with the banks to return as much as possible. Your grandson provided detailed documentation, frankly the kind of trail we wish every case had." I looked at Ethan, who was pretending not to listen while clearly hanging on every word. I mouthed, "That's you." After I hung up, I crossed the kitchen and wrapped him in the tightest hug I could manage. He stiffened at first. Teenagers never know what to do with long hugs. But then I felt his arms come around me. "We did it, Grandma," he said into my shoulder. "No," I corrected. "You did it. I just kept the coffee coming." The next 3 days felt like living in a different house. The air was lighter, like we'd opened all the windows after years of being shut in. But there was also this strange quiet. No late-night footsteps in the hallway. No car doors slamming at midnight. No tension hanging in the corners of every room. On Monday morning, the news broke. Local man and accomplice arrested in multi-state fraud case. The anchor's voice announced over footage of David in handcuffs, his face pale against the flashing red and blue lights. Crystal followed behind him, her perfect hair a mess, eyes wide at the cameras. Ethan and I sat on the couch watching. They named victims in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. Elderly couples, widows, retirees, people just like me. The reporter mentioned a detailed tip from a minor family member that cracked the case. I glanced sideways at Ethan. He was trying not to smile, but his ears were red. By Wednesday, our phone had turned into a hotline. Bank representatives called to confirm funds being returned. Victims, people I'd never met, were leaving messages that made my throat tighten. "Mrs. Collins, I heard what your grandson did. I had lost hope, but because of him, I can pay for my husband's treatment. You don't know me, but please tell Ethan he saved my home." Ethan would just nod quietly, but I could see it in his eyes. This was the kind of thanks that went deeper than any award. Then came the press. A local newspaper wanted an interview. At first, I hesitated. Our lives had been turned upside down enough. But Ethan surprised me. "Grandma," he said, "if we tell the story, maybe other people will watch out for this stuff. It's not just about us." So we sat at the kitchen table with a reporter from the Columbus Dispatch. Ethan explained in his careful way how monitoring suspicious patterns could protect people. How knowing the basics could stop someone from falling into the trap my son had set. He never bragged, but his knowledge shone through. 2 days later, the headline read, "Teen Hacker Turns the Tables on Family Fraud Ring." That night, a cybersecurity professor from Ohio State called the house. She'd read the article and wanted to meet Ethan. Students twice his age struggle to track the kind of digital footprint he followed. She told me over the phone. We could offer him a mentorship. Ethan tried to play it cool, but when he hung up, he whispered, "Grandma, that's the school I've always wanted to go to." And for the first time in weeks, I thought about the future. Not just surviving this mess, but what might come next for him. The first letter came 2 weeks after the arrest. Plain white envelope, return address stamped with the Federal Detention Center in Cincinnati. My stomach turned just seeing David's handwriting. Sharp, hurried, the same way it looked when he was a boy rushing through homework so he could go outside. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity, or maybe that old mother's instinct, got the better of me. "Ma," it began, "I know you hate me right now, and I don't blame you. I've had a lot of time to think in here. It's not the way you raised me. I don't know why I let Crystal talk me into half the things we did. I'm sorry about the money, but more than that, I'm sorry for making you look at me like a stranger. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. Tell Ethan I'm proud of him, even though he took me down." I read it twice, then folded it back into the envelope and left it on the counter. Forgiveness was complicated. I didn't want to carry hate. It was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. But forgiving him didn't mean forgetting. And it didn't mean letting him back into my life without proof he'd changed. 3 days later, another letter arrived. This one was shorter. "Ma, I got a job in the kitchen here. I'm in a rehab group. I want to fix things. Please write back." I didn't. Ethan noticed the letters piling up. "Are you going to answer him?" he asked one night, rinsing dishes after dinner. "Not yet," I said. "If he's serious about changing, I'll know it in time. Words are easy. Actions are hard." That weekend we drove out to see some of the victims who'd gotten their money back. Mrs. Reynolds, a widow in her 70s, pressed a loaf of banana bread into my hands and hugged Ethan so tight he could barely breathe. "You didn't just give me money," she told him. "You gave me back my trust in people." That hit me harder than any letter David could write. Trust. That's what had been stolen from all of us. And here was my grandson, piece by piece, helping people take it back. Spring came late to Ohio that year. By April, patches of snow still clung to the shady spots in the yard, but the air smelled faintly of thawing earth. It felt like the world was trying to start over. And so were we. Ethan had been spending more time at the public library than in front of his Xbox. One Tuesday evening, he came home with a spark in his eyes I hadn't seen since before all this mess. "Grandma," he said, dropping his backpack on the chair, "I'm building something." I smiled. "Another science fair project?" "Bigger," he said. "It's a website, well, eventually an app, that teaches older folks how to spot scams. Step-by-step videos, example phone calls, even fake emails they can practice spotting before the real thing happens." I felt my throat tighten. "You're doing this? For me?" He shrugged. "For you, for Mrs. Reynolds, for all of them. We can't stop every bad person out there, but we can make people harder targets." Over the next few weeks, our kitchen table turned into his command center. Laptops, sticky notes, hand-sketched wireframes. It was like watching someone build a fortress out of ideas. One Saturday morning, while Ethan was coding, the phone rang. It was the prison chaplain. "Mrs. Collins," he said, "your son's been attending every counseling session we offer. He's also enrolled in a financial literacy program. He asked me to pass along that he'd like you to visit." I stared at the wall. My first instinct was to say no, but the chaplain's voice was calm, patient. "You don't have to decide now. Just think about whether seeing him might help you both move forward." "That night," I told Ethan. "Would you go?" he asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. Part of me wants to hear him say he's sorry to my face. Part of me never wants to be in the same room with him again. Ethan thought for a moment. "If you go, don't do it for him. Do it for you." 2 weeks later, the site went live. Ethan called it ShieldNet, with a little silver shield logo he designed himself. Within days, people from 3 different states were emailing him for advice. A local TV station even ran a segment on it, calling Ethan the teen who turned pain into protection. Watching that piece air, I realized something. No matter what I decided about David, Ethan's future was already in motion. And it was one built on the exact opposite of what his father had chosen. The morning I finally drove to the prison, the sky was a pale, washed-out blue, the kind you see just before the first real warmth of the year. I'd been carrying the chaplain's invitation in the back of my mind for weeks, weighing it like a coin in my pocket. Flip it one way, I stay home. Flip it the other, I walk through those gates. Ethan didn't try to sway me. That morning, he just handed me my coat and said, "I'll have dinner ready when you get back." The drive was quiet, just the hum of the tires and my own heartbeat. When I arrived, they checked my ID, scanned my purse, and led me into a small room with 2 chairs and a thick pane of glass between them. David was already there. His hair was shorter, his face thinner. For a moment, I saw flashes of the boy from the old photos, the one with a baseball glove too big for his hand. He picked up the phone on his side of the glass. "Ma." I sat, lifting the receiver slowly. "David." There was a long pause before he spoke. "I'm sorry. Not just for the money. For making you feel like you didn't know your own son. For taking what you worked your whole life to build. For letting Ethan see me like that." I watched his face as he spoke. His eyes didn't dart away. His voice didn't carry the slick charm it used to. He looked tired. But there was something else there. Maybe honesty. "I'm working in the kitchen," he said. "Taking classes. I want to be someone Ethan can be proud of when I get out. I know I can't ask you to forgive me yet, but I want to earn it." I held the phone tighter. "David, I hope you mean every word, because your son, he's everything I could have wished for you to be." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I know." When the guard signaled time, I stood. "Goodbye, David. Goodbye, Ma." Back home, Ethan was at the stove, stirring a pot of chili. "Well?" he asked. I smiled faintly. We'll see, but I think maybe there's a crack of light in him. That night, after dinner, we sat on the couch, the soft glow of the TV playing in the background. Ethan pulled out his laptop to check ShieldNet's inbox. 3 more messages from people thanking him for helping them avoid scams. "Grandma," he said, "I think this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Protect people." I rested my hand on his shoulder. "Then you've already succeeded." Looking at him there, focused and determined, I realized something important. Betrayal can shake the ground under your feet, but it doesn't have to take away the foundation you stand on. Family can break you, but sometimes it can save you too. And as the night settled over the house, I knew that while our story had scars, it also had a future. And that was enough.